is all we got? This is all we've got? Very good. It's August 24th. Please rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning.
I just laid my cards down.
Had a good week in Warren County. Had a good tennis tournament that just wrapped up, so good. You had a chance to review the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And yes.
We had an opportunity to review the requisitions.
Yeah, I had a question about the change order from Granger. I know that it was just a big one, so I just wanted to get some clarification.
Yes,
about
the actual change order itself was approved last week. They're following up with the actual PO change order. That is for some additional grading surrounding the actual new sheriff's office. Trevor asked to upgrade the type of riprap that's surrounding it. So that was what was involved with that. We had transparent pricing, and Trevor reviewed it and recommended acceptance.
Great, thank you.
And what about this land purchase? That's, what's the purpose of that?
That was through the water department and the park board.
That's correct. That's the South Lebanon property that we are, that we received an ODNR grant on, that we're partnering with the park board and the water department. I believe they're going to put some well fields
Okay, so that's
on
one,
that
is that one of
property.
the ones
That
we've
is
already
the
been
property
looking
that
at?
we've discussed.
Okay.
This is just,
That's the same thing.
It's taken us that long to get to closing.
And the vendor is the seller of the property?
That's, or is it the trustee? It is the, okay, I thought it was the trustee.
Okay, thanks.
So the park board has the matching, amount, which we do not see,
Mhm. And when we're doing,
that we funded.
and one thing, Bruce, did you look, so do we pay legal services for one of our departments here? Is that something separate from the prosecutor's office?
That is the Workforce Investment Board.
Okay, so it's
So-
not, that they're not covered by the prosecutor?
They are not.
Correct.
Okay,
I'm good with it.
me too.
Yes.
I have just a couple add-ons. The first is a resolution to approve a supplemental appropriation for the jail sales tax fund 4499
It's fine.
for $70,000.
That's just to post the
Yep.
sales tax, that's the administrative fee. We book it in as a receipt, and then we have to book it as a non-cash entry for an expenditure, for the
Okay.
1%
Okay, yep.
admin fee.
Yes.
And yes?
I have a resolution to hire Dusty Johnson as Building and Electrical Inspector 1 within the Building and Zoning Department.
So moved.
Second.
Yes.
That's all that I have.
Very good. It is 9:08 on August 24th, and this board is scheduled for an administrative hearing on the application of PUD Stage 2 preliminary site plan filed by the State of Ohio relating to Core 5 Industrial Partners LLC development on surplus prison farmlands consisting of 295.99 acres with access from State Route 63. For the record, Tino, why don't you read into the record what documents that you've received on this matter?
We have received the Regional Planning Commission Executive Committee report and recommendation, a PowerPoint presentation from the Regional Planning Commission. We also have received copies of the review comments from the Health Department, the Soil and Water Conservation District, and the Turtle Creek Township trustees.
Very good, thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask anybody that even thinks you might speak during this hearing, if you'd please stand up, I'm going to swear you in. Raise your right hand. Do you so solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you. Very good. Staff, on on behalf of Regional Planning, go ahead and give us a presentation.
Very good. Good morning. My name is Ryan Cook with the Warren County Regional Planning
Have
Commission.
you been sworn in? And just for everybody, if you just state, yes, I've been sworn in.
And yes, I've been sworn in. So here before us, we have the ODC Warren County Surplus Farm, which is known as the Core 5 in Turtle Creek Township. This is a PUD Stage 2. So going over the project information here, the applicant is Core 5 Industrial Partners, LLC. Property owner is the State of Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections. The site address is State Route 63 and Union Road. The site area is a little over 295 acres, and the proposed use here is industrial facilities. So looking at the review process, this is within the Interstate Highway Overlay, which allows an accelerated PUD process, so they are able to start at PUD Stage 2. We provided a recommendation here, and now we're at the County Commissioners. So looking at the vicinity map of the site, it's located just north and east of the Racino. It does have frontage on 63. Their proposed access, though, will be off-site, but from 63. As mentioned, this is within the Mixed-Use Center Gateway Interstate Highway Overlay. And their proposed use here is for industrial facilities, some ponds for stormwater management, parking areas for each facility, and as I mentioned, is within that Interstate Highway Overlay accelerated process. So going over their site plan, they're proposing 4 total buildings, over 3 million square feet of industrial facility. Their main access will be from State Route 63, and there is a future connection to Shaker Run. So going into detail of some of the lots here, the Lot 1 located to the north of the property is approximately 93 acres. It's roughly 1 million square feet of facility. There's 408 trailer parking spaces and 619 car parking spaces. Lot 2, located just south of that, is approximately 90 acres, again about 1 million square feet of facility, 248 trailer parking spaces, and 890 car parking spaces. Lot 3, located just east of that, is around 32 acres, roughly 500,000 square feet of facility, 132 trailer parking spaces, and 442 car parking spaces. And the last lot proposed here, located along State Route 63, is roughly 48 acres, 336,000 square feet of facility, 326 trailer parking spaces, and 231 car parking spaces. Looking at the Warren County Thoroughfare Plan, their main access is limited to the select locations along State Route 63, and that's the main reason why their main access is actually off-site. And looking, it's consistent with the Turtle Creek Crossroads plan as well. There is a future connection to Union Road, but as of right now, they have no frontage along Union Road. There is a very small strip along Union Road that they do not have frontage, but with the future Union Road in the future, they would hopefully be able to connect to that. So we have conditions in the report for that. So this highlights the no frontage along that Union Road. Shaker Run has some street stubs planned in their development. The one highlighted in the circle there is the one planned to connect to this development, shown here on the screen. The Racino also has some possible secondary access points, providing access to Union Road through the Racino site. But these are not public roadways. There are existing wellheads on the site for Otterbein. And then they are shown towards State Route 63 on the plan. There is a proposed, or an existing fence there shown in yellow for them to have the development outside that wellhead area. The site does have groundwater protection on the site, shown in the yellow, just to be aware of that. Here shown on the screen is the 1% annual flood chance. Again, showing that a little bit more in detail. They are providing what we call a 50-foot landscape buffer along the Shaker Run property. We'll get more into detail on the exact plans on that, but we have conditions of approval regarding that. So I won't go through each and every one of these, but just to give a brief summary. So we are recommending approval of this PUD Stage 2. So I'll just go over number 3 here, submission of a traffic impact analysis to be reviewed by the Ohio Department of Transportation since it's on a state route, as well as our engineer's office prior to PUD Stage 3. And then looking, so the landscape plan, as I mentioned, there weren't any further details, but we are recommending that they submit a landscape plan prior to Stage 3 to be reviewed by zoning and the Regional Planning Commission. And then also, I'll move on a little bit closer here. So the street stub to Shaker Run development shall be installed to the property line prior to 75% of the lots being platted and developed. And then these conditions were recommendations for the applicant to satisfy before the meeting. The ones checked off, 11A through D, have been satisfied. So with that recommendation, we would recommend to remove those conditions of approval. As well as number 12, but 12B was one that was not satisfied yet. But then, and then the final one, number 13, final plat approval is subject to the right-of-way dedication for State Route 63 as shown on the plan. So with that, I can answer any questions.
So this is in a groundwater protection area?
It is.
And they're limited, I take it, the type of things that can be stored on the site?
That's correct.
Yeah, who is policing that?
I'm not too sure.
Yeah, because obviously the aquifers are a great resource for everyone, and we have
Right.
to make sure that that's protected. And so I'll ask the applicant that, I take it. Any other questions for Ron?
Yeah, okay, wanna go?
I can wait.
All right. So I don't understand no access to Union Road. There's like all this frontage on Union Road, and instead of going through there, you say there's no access there, so I'd like you to explain that. And then, I mean, you're sending them through a neighborhood with a whole bunch of trucks, traffic?
Right, so there was a planned connection, street stub to this. We have had talks with the engineer's office of potential signage that they could be posted for no through truck traffic. But we have heard from residents from Shaker Run that they want the connection to be able to access.
So they want all this, I mean, based upon, you're telling me about all these trailer parking places, this is gonna be a major hub for trucks. This is gonna be some sort of a major source for trucks going in and out and supplying these industrial facilities, and they're gonna be going through a neighborhood with all these 40-foot or whatever tractor trailers.
Right.
And the neighbors know this.
They do, but I do know that's not obviously the main access, and they're,
That's
actual.
not the main access, it's the only access, isn't it? Or you're
No,
gonna go
no.
to 63? And the 63 access is the main one, that's the main one they're gonna have?
That's correct.
Okay, so the other one is just an alternative route, when would they ever use that?
I would assume that they wouldn't, maybe for emergency access. I know that was talked with the engineer's
Is
office.
that gonna be posted that none of these tractor trailers are supposed to go through that area, but they would go out to 63?
There could be signage with the engineer's office could post signage for that.
Yeah, but is that what's gonna be happening? In other words, is there a condition that the tractor-trailer traffic not go up to Green Tree through this subdivision?
The truck traffic, good morning, Commissioners.
Identify yourself.
Stan Williams, I've not been sworn in. I have not been sworn in.
Oh,
You've
you've
not?
not been sworn
Not.
in.
Go ahead and raise your right hand. Do you so solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Identify yourself now for the record.
Stan Williams. The truck traffic will primarily be coming from 63.
Okay.
The access to Shaker Run was primarily for the benefit of the residents. So there won't be any truck traffic entering or exiting from Shaker Run.
Okay, and so that's something that they can prohibit? Who has the right to prohibit that?
The engineer's office,
Our office, our engineer's
our
office?
engineer's office, yes, correct.
So they have a right to say, and they'll post signs?
They'll post signs
And
that,
is that part of the PUD?
you certainly can make that a condition of
Condition?
approval too,
Okay.
within the PUD.
And then, so what is it, going back to my other question, why is it that Union Road can't be accessed?
Right.
Yeah,
You've got all
so
this frontage on Union Road.
they actually do not have any frontage on Union
So
Road.
there's somebody else owns that property? Who's got it?
Correct. The property owners across the street.
This red strip is owned by Traders World as well as the Solid Rock Church. So there is
So they would have to buy property or an easement from them to access Union Road?
correct.
Okay, and they don't have to do that?
No, but I think, and the applicant certainly can speak to that, but I think
Okay.
the desire is
Usually
to-
people can't, private people can't be forced to do that type of thing. If it's a
correct.
public person,
There's
they
not,
can't be.
I don't think it's possible for us to make a condition of approval that they do that access, but we can, we have written some conditions in that, our recommendation.
Well, I'm okay with,
But-
as long as you have that access to 63, and that's through our property on 63? Whose property is it that they're going through to get to 63?
The
Can
state
you go back to
property.
that?
That's the state property. And the state's already given them permission to do that? So it's the
Right.
state's given them permission to go through their property to get to 63?
Yes, and that's what, the last condition is contingent upon approval of them getting an access easement through that property.
Oh, so they don't have that yet?
And they might be able to give you that
All
answer.
right, thank you.
So you're saying basically in between Lot 1 and Lot 2, that's just a stub into Union Road there?
Right now, it is proposed as a cul-de-sac, and then future, when Union Road gets realigned, possible connection to that.
Oh, wait a second, do we have the right to realign Union Road so that they have access to it and they don't have to go through somebody else's property? So in other words, we've got the right to put Union Road on the Solid Rock Church property and/or the Traders World property? We've got the right to move Union Road or expand it so that they would have access?
Could you go back to the comprehensive plan? The thoroughfare plan shows a new realignment for Union Road that goes through the Racino site as well as this site.
It actually goes through the site in question.
The site in question, correct, yes.
So that would immediately give them access?
Correct, yes.
Oh, okay, now that's just a thoroughfare plan. Do we have an easement right to do that?
We have secured an easement on the Racino property, and the applicant is also showing an easement or a right-of-way on their property.
No, I asked a different question. Do we have the right to do that expansion right now? In other words, do we have an easement to go on to the Traders World property or the Solid Rock Church property to expand, to move Union Road to the east?
You've got a big enough checkbook. is what I guess.
Okay, well, that's what I wanted to know. I think we do have a big enough checkbook, but,
But
Property owners is here, so you could ask him.
okay, good.
But I think the future alignment would exclude Traders World property as well as Solid Rock's property.
It would exclude them from getting access to the road.
No, it would put the road through, not through
not through
their
their
property
property.
any longer.
Correct, yes.
That's what I understood.
Yes, yes.
And that's why I asked the question, do we have the right now to do it? And I think that our lawyer has said, if we pay for it, we do.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Or if we negotiate a mutually agreeable arrangement with the current property owners,
Yeah, right.
which is Miami Valley Gaming and presumably this parcel.
Sure. I understand. Thank you.
Shannon, questions?
Tom hit on both of my questions, but I would say that, I share the concern about the connection to Green Tree, especially in the lack of an easement, and with access to Union Road. I can't imagine that there's unanimity among that neighborhood, even though for some, there would be ease of entry to State Route 63 to get to 75, so I understand why that would be a benefit. But you're talking about over 2,000 cars and over 1,000 tractor trailers, signs notwithstanding, that's a lot.
Thank you.
Does the applicant have any questions for Ryan, for regional planning? No questions. All right, thank you. Very good. This time I'll ask the applicant to come forward.
Good morning. John Delverne with Bear Becker, 6900 Tylersville Road, Mason, Ohio, 45040.
Your name one more time for the record?
John Delverne. I have been sworn in. With me is Doug Armbruster with Core 5 Industrial Properties, and Rob Keller with Bear Becker. Don't have a formal presentation. I think Ryan did a pretty good job of covering, but I would like to address a couple of issues. One is the Shaker Run connection, which you see. Let's go to this point right here. Sometimes it's harder. This connection, as you can see, the preliminary plat for Shaker Run envisioned this connection years ago. I think it actually showed up on this plat, I think in the version 2012, potentially. We did receive a letter, actually an email, some correspondence from Kurt Weber with the Warren County Engineer's Office. He had a conversation with the Shaker Run HOA. They were showing support for that connection. From his perspective, as the HOA president, not Kurt Weber, but the HOA president of Shaker Run, their residents were concerned about only having 2 access points out onto Green Tree Road, and they welcomed the opportunity for a third connection. I think they were concerned about, if I'm just reading the email, safety, emergency access, and probably just convenience. So we anticipate that we're going to see Shaker Run residents coming through the new development to access 63. We do intend to sign that entrance, no trucks. I don't know that we can legally enforce that, but certainly would put some no truck access signs up and to deter trucks from heading north. Being familiar with the Shaker Run plan as I am, we were the engineer for that development. I can't imagine a truck would want to go through that way. Google might take them that way, but I would think that that would not be the quickest way to get to I-75 or to I-71, would be to get on State Route 63. Union Road access, just a couple of, Ryan, I don't know if do you have a bigger shot of that area? I don't know, you're familiar with your slide order then? Yeah, there you go, that's good. Okay, thank you. It's a little tough to see here. There is the properties to the west do cross over, extend east beyond the Union Road right-of-way, so they actually have ownership of I'll call it to the center of the creek. The right-of-way is west of that, so we technically don't have frontage. We have planned for a connection to Union Road. We have noted, and it's right here, it's just hard to see, it says temporary cul-de-sac. So there's a temporary turnaround proposed. The engineer's office has required us to bond that connection point until sometime that right-of-way can be acquired and the connection can be made. So we've had to bond the improvements to make that connection. But in the short term, until something is worked out, we have a temporary cul-de-sac proposed there at this time.
Can I ask you a quick question about that?
Yes.
is that Solid Rock's property right there, or is that the Trader's World property?
I think that's Trader's World. I think that we're south of Solid Rock there.
Okay, and have you had any discussions with Trader's World about acquiring access?
I have not.
Okay.
Have you had any
Doug Armbruster, Senior Vice President with Core 5, 250 Grandview Drive, Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. I have been sworn in. We have not at this point. We've been working on this site for more than a few years. And, you know, when we discovered that the site was entirely landlocked, we looked at a number of alternatives. And we've been focused on the 63 access with the state of Ohio. We've been negotiating that. I think we've got a meeting of the minds. That's really the last item we're waiting on from the state to allow us to close. So we're waiting on comments back from Marcy Early with DAS at the state. And then in meetings with the Warren County Engineers Office, the secondary access point, we've got the Green Tree connection that we've discussed. And originally, we were not planning to make that until the residents made that request to the engineer's office. And the intent in our final engineering, we will definitely look at everything we can do to prohibit truck traffic, choking down any driveways on the building that's fronting on that road to prohibit right-hand turns. So we're very aware of that, and we don't want to shoot any traffic into that neighborhood. There would be really no reason to do that. And it would be our intent to we've agreed to dedicate, and we've set all of our development up to allow for the future right-of-way for Union Road to Warren County at such time in the future as the road is relocated.
What, if we put a condition of approval that you get access to Union Road, would you object to that?
We wouldn't object to it, but, you know, working with, we really need to loop in the city of Monroe because it falls within their jurisdiction.
What do you mean it's where that's?
With regard to
Monroe?
access of Union Road, I believe is that a county road or is it a city of Monroe road? Yeah. It's inside the city
But
limits.
it's in
of
Warren County.
It is, but I think it's in their jurisdiction is our understanding. We've, you know,
Union
there's been
Road's a Monroe Road?
Yeah, I think whatever portion is within the city of Monroe would be there. Because the city of Monroe actually crosses over into Warren County. It's split in between Butler County and Warren County.
So when all this discussion was happening with the engineer's office about expanding Union and putting it on their property, what is that, transferring it to us if we did that?
That would be actually transferring it onto our property.
Yeah, but it would be a public road still.
Correct.
It would be a county road then. is that
Correct,
right?
and we would not then need that
Exactly.
strip. It's anywhere from a 4 to a 9 foot strip, and it looked like what we can discover with looking back at old title documents, that somebody just missed taking enough right of way at the time to get over, and it left anywhere from, does it get down to what, 4 feet to 9 feet? That's what we were able to kind of piece together. You know, we don't.
Well, if you had an easement granted to you by Trader's World, wouldn't that solve the problem and allow you to connect? And Monroe can stop you from doing that?
No, it's just, well, we don't object to tying in, and we've agreed to bond that future connection. I think what we tried to determine was there's an expensive cost to get a culvert across, is that Shaker Run? Yeah, Shaker Creek. And if the road was going to be relocated, you know, we didn't want to put in
I see.
an expensive culvert only to
Yeah, no,
have
I
it
understand
abandoned.
That makes sense.
We've been, like I said, this thing was fraught with, you know, all sorts of gotchas. We think we've all got them contained. But nobody ever knew that this site was completely landlocked when we got into it until we really started studying it.
Yeah, but I can imagine I'm guessing even though you've got some approval and request from that HOA to have access, I bet you they have no idea that there could be a lot of semi-tractor trailers going through there. And if the signage stops them, or doesn't, or whether the law can say no. I don't know the answer
Well,
to the question.
what we've done is, the Park Road, what are we back to back on the Park Road? Is it 42 feet? And we've taken that road down to 30 feet back to back, or?
It's 20, the local road, it's 29 feet back and curvy back.
And like I said, in the final design, we want to do everything we can. I don't want somebody calling me saying we're putting truck traffic through there. That's not what we want. So we want to do everything we can to encourage, left-hand movements out of what would be Building 3, back to 63. Whether or not we could install some sort of a headache bar as well. We'd still want, obviously emergency egress to be able to clear it, but there are some things that we could do. We would potentially look at also maybe adding in a turnaround if somebody did screw up. Big signs, turn around here, that sort of thing. But we'll do everything within our power to make sure that that does not happen, because we don't want that to happen.
So whose idea is the connection up through the residential area?
The HOA.
But aren't you required to have two separate?
We have looked at secondary access. There is the existing farm road, which is in the lower left-hand corner. And that is a potential secondary access. And then we had also talked about through the Racino part. We've not really been able to contact them. They've been pretty non-responsive.
What does that mean? You send them a letter or emails or something like that, and they just don't
Called,
respond to you?
yeah,
Called? They don't?
yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because they've got a straight access in that ties right into that farm road.
Can
Okay.
you describe for me what you, what you're planning or thinking about with respect to, I'm sure there's a landscape buffer between the east side of the property to the, I guess there's a road, that road there to, and then there's the subdivision. What is that landscape buffer looking like?
Do you want to address that? Or John?
Well, it's at a minimum, right now, we have a 10-foot fence that's required on the property line, and then it would either be supplemented with, mounding if that's possible, or it could be a cut slope with some trees and so forth.
And so how long is that?
How long? It would be continuous along the property line. Yeah, especially, you're talking about this area. Yeah, look at that. Here.
Yeah.
Here, we have the floodplain, so won't be houses backing right up to that, but here would probably be the area that we've looked at. Actually, I anticipate this pad's gonna sit down lower than the property line in the final grading analysis, just some preliminary grading that we've looked at. So we'll have a cut slope, we'll have a fence along the property line, and be supplemented with trees and so forth, but that plan is yet to be.
And are any
prepared.
of the conditions addressing the landscape buffer?
Well, there's a, item 5, landscape shall be illustrated on the site plan compliance with Warren County zoning code. Warren County zoning and RPC shall review and approve landscape plan prior to PUD stage 3.
So that's already a condition?
Yeah, as a condition on the plan itself, the buffers are identified on the title sheet describing the width, 50 feet in that particular case, and their locations.
Thank you.
So, yeah, obviously the board is concerned about this connection, even if it wasn't asked for. We've been around the block to know that signage with trucks doesn't always work. We've got down at the Peters Cartridge Factory, how many times, Bruce, do we have to pull people out of there? There's sign after sign after sign, no 18-wheelers, no 18-wheelers, and they would consistently get stuck down there. They would do it anyway because they're so good, they're such a good driver, I can make it. And then we're taking big tow trucks down there. So there's two possible outcomes here. So you've either got the massive concentration of trucks is going to be on your site at that property, obviously. So then do you have the one-off that's trying to leave because they're making a run to the northwest somewhere and Google or whatever says, hey, you can cut through right here, go ahead and do it. So I would think a lot of that could be rectified if at that intersection or at that choke point, you had some sort of an island, that it is clearly, 18-wheelers can't make it through here to head out the Shaker Run. And again, it doesn't have to be an expensive island, but they're not gonna drive across something, so I think that is a viable option instead of signage, or in addition to signage, perhaps some sort of an, physical barrier that I'm an 18-wheeler, I'm not going up through this.
Some sort of a kind of a speed bump or something that tractor trailers.
I'm talking about like an island.
We're in
like
agreement
I
with
heard that,
working
but-
with the engineer's office to come up with an acceptable plan, and we'd be willing to put that as a condition of it. Again, we don't want to encourage that. We don't want to do anything to do that. We've had discussions when we get into our final design that, you know, the turns coming out of that building will all be left-hand movements directing everybody back. I think, you know, an island, you know, as I said, a horizontal headache bar that, you know, prohibits them from
Oh, yeah.
clearing underneath of
That's
it.
an easy fix too, yeah.
There are things we can do, and, you know, I've developed millions of square feet, and we want to be good neighbors. And, you know, they asked for the connection, and, you know, we agreed to do that at our cost. So we'll, you know, be happy to look at alternatives and come up with something that the Warren County Engineers Office signs off on.
And I think some signage even at 741 where you're going into that neighborhood, because again, the one-off truck, the one out of 500 trucks that's coming that way to your site might be taking them right through, hey, it's right there at the bottom of the hill, go through this residential area, so we have to make it clear up there also. You can't get through here.
Understood?
We need to modify that condition when these gentlemen are finished with their presentation. Maybe planning can put the conditions back up. We need to tweak that condition.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. What, and tell me your response to the question, because again, these are good, practical, everyday, they impact the lives of our citizens. But one of the things that you think about is this unintended consequence. You guys are literally in a protected field area, and with storage there now, one of your customers brings in, you know, barrels of blank. Something spills, all of a sudden it's right there in this protected groundwater area, gets into the aquifer. Do you understand that condition and what's going on there? I mean, I'm sure you've dealt with that at other
I do.
places.
I was involved in the development of Park North across the way, and we had some of the same well field protection areas. And the area in question, I don't know if, John, you can pull up the building showing the well field area. Let me see if we can. Can you kind of point to where it is? It's really hard to see down there.
Well, there's a well, but then there's also the groundwater protection.
There's the protection area right there. It's basically clips that lower left-hand quadrant of the site. We would be more than happy to allow Otterbein to put a fence up through there. And there's currently a sanitary sewer that runs through there. We're willing to dedicate an additional easement for the benefit of the Butler County Sewer if that sewer was ever relocated. We've got, Rob, do you want to speak to the dry detention basin we have there and how that's serving to kind of protect that
Yeah,
area?
I'm talking more about that slide, the groundwater protection slide.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, so I'm not sure what the orange represents, but it almost looks like our 300-foot protection zone. But yeah, that's the area that we're talking about, where the well field is on the corner, the southwest corner of that property, and then we've got a 300-foot wellhead protection area. If you mirror that onto the Racino's property and look at an aerial view, they almost have a fence. You can see it in the aerial, you can measure it. It's about 300 feet off where looks like they respected that same buffer to that wellhead. So we're just basically mirroring that concept onto our property.
But am I thinking of this incorrectly, and I might be, that even outside the wellhead
yes.
head is one thing.
Right.
Then there's a protection area also that you're supposed to be limited in the type of activities that you do when you're on top of a groundwater protection area.
Right.
Staff, am I correct on that?
There's a condition that the RPC utilize, and they'll have to comply with that.
Yes, and there's the ground protection overlay zone requirements that are part of the zoning code, which I would would think would be part of every building department permit submittal, getting a zoning certificate as part of that process, that review is going to occur there as far as what the uses are proposed in each building.
So staff, you've looked at that, you're comfortable with the plan, because obviously you can't have a screw up of a bunch of chemicals get into the groundwater. Okay?
Other than that, we have no more comments.
Okay, very good, thank you. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on behalf, in favor of this development?
Good morning. I'm Jeff Wheeland, 1242 North Union Road, and I've been sworn in. We live just north of the property here, and we have concerns with, and I'm not for it or against it, I guess. Maybe I'll wait till the end of the meeting, but I'm really not for it or against it. I'm a builder here in Southwest Ohio, so I'm always for building things and wouldn't want to stop anybody from doing what they're doing. My biggest question is that, does this continue with your thoroughfare plan that you guys have for Union Road, for that intersection at Green Tree and Union Road? We tried to develop that property, which was the Green Tree Golf Course, when we first moved up there to farm it, and I still haven't healed from the wounds that we got from the county when we were trying to do that, but that was a joke. And so it was very.
Officially, we've been over back, we're just trying to be nice to you.
You did. One of the biggest things I remember about that is that there were specific details on what you wanted Union Road to look like and what you wanted our property to look like, and whether it was mixed with residential or mixed with commercial. And so when I first saw this come up, and I went to the city of Monroe when Mike Burns was getting his property switched around as well. They were going from one industrial to a different industrial. And I asked them the same question, and they seemed to draw a blank. So does this continue with your plan and what you envision this to look like? Because when I first moved up here, you guys had an idea of Union Road being a boulevard and going all the way up to the hospitals and running all the way north through Franklin and running all the way down to Mason, in fact, and I thought it was a grand scheme. So that was one of my questions for the commissioners. And then the other question I have, this is like you keep referring to that aquifer. It's the third largest aquifer in the state of Ohio, and it's a huge amount of water. And I'm sure you guys figured that out when you were drilling. And so there is something to be concerned about when what you're talking about with if it spills. But then also the elevation that changes there and the offset from Union Road. And John, I didn't see the offset, like what's your building line offset from there? Because I think that property probably changes elevation by about 30 or 40 feet when you're going back towards Shaker Run. And what does that look like? How tall are those buildings going to be, and how high above Union Road is that going to be? And then your stormwater plan, as it sits right now, when we get a pretty decent rain, we're in the bottom ground, and that creek that runs along Union Road will fill up and come almost up to the road the way it is right now. So I'm wondering where that stormwater is going to go and what your plans are to improve that as you go down. And then one more, I don't know if you want to answer these individually or if you want me to keep going, because I can talk all day if you want me to.
I don't think we can answer your questions, but maybe the engineer can.
So the one last question I had was on that property line, between our property and your property, you're talking about a landscape barrier and some other things that are going on the eastern property, but what is your plans for the northern property line there on the other side of the power lines? Because we've got some trees and some cattle fence and things for our farm that we have intended to keep the trees, but we also have some fencing, and then didn't want to put fence up, and then you guys are coming up and putting a fence right up next to ours, and if we could work together on that, we could work that out. So
When you say this is a farm, you farm this property, but nobody lives on the property.
I live on a property and we farm it.
Okay, so this is your home?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, and you, I don't remember you trying to develop this property while I was
I
here.
can't believe you don't remember that.
Was it with you?
It was-
Maybe? I don't know.
might have
How
been
long ago
before
was
some-
it?
He was here. It was 3 years ago.
Okay, then I
Yeah.
was here.
Yeah. I think we were like one of the first on that mixed-use center, Stan. We did a lot of different work on that mixed-use center plan and trying to figure out how that was all going to work.
Okay. So you have an interest in a site buffer?
I don't have an interest in the site buffer. I probably have an interest in working together with them with the Ohio fence laws and how we could build fence together and keep those trees there and what that looks like. You know, I mean, I see a lot of these developments where they put I think they just referred to it like a 10-foot fence. And in order to do that, I don't want to take those trees down and build a 10-foot wooden fence and where we could probably work together on that to make it do something different.
Do you currently have a fence on your property?
There's an old rundown fence from probably the prison that was there, and we've been, that particular field is in corn and beans right now.
So it
And
doesn't need
in the
a
future, we'll
fence.
fence it.
Oh, okay, but you don't need a fence for cattle or?
I do.
You do?
I will, not right now, but I will in the future.
Okay.
Yep.
So it'd be, you would find it to be helpful to have a fence that they pay for, or they partly pay
We would share the
for?
cost of it.
Okay, I
Yeah.
understand, thank you.
Yeah.
So fences and trees is one. Number two, elevation changes, and what is the concern there? That, yeah, if it's 30 feet higher, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to balance the site, that means that when you come from Union Road, you're probably going to come up another 10 or 15 feet to balance it out, and then you add those buildings on top of it. Those buildings are going to be, right now, probably 30, 40 feet above Union Road, and that would be very unattractive for anybody at that point.
And then, anything else?
And I think it was the stormwater, what's going to happen with the stormwater.
We should just hire you to be a consultant for the board. You're asking good questions.
I
Thank you,
could
Mr. Wheeler.
come and,
You know.
when you guys want to retire, I'll come up and help you if you want.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Very good. Applicant or engineer folks, Mr. Whelan's respected member of the community, knows what he's talking about. Those are good questions.
I don't have a grading plan here.
And again, yeah, since this is being taped or brought, can you just identify yourself again?
Yeah.
Every time you come up, just kind of say your name.
Yes, John Delvern with Bearbecker. Let me see, which way? Okay, as far as setbacks or Union Road is concerned, the area, our property line is out in the middle of the creek, if I remember correctly. It's along here. We're proposing it varies along the length of Union Road, but there's anywhere from 130 to 140 feet of right-of-way for a future Union Road relocation that's being dedicated for that improvement in the future. And then we are, as far as setback off Union Road, buildings are much, or even greater than that. They're like 240, about 200, let's call it 240 feet off of that proposed right-of-way line here. So I think we've respected, sorry, I'm accidentally changing the slide. But I think we've pretty much respected the, Union Road, either in the future case, as far as what that corridor will look like. As far as elevations go, our pads, first I'll say that the building heights, I think on the title sheet, I think are limited to 60 feet. I don't know that they'll be that tall. And maybe Doug could answer that question, but just looking really quick, high level, we're at about a 664 elevation here. This is probably the peak at 710, roughly. This building pad's at 680, so we're, 30 feet lower than the corner here. We're about 16 feet higher than the corner here. So that's just how much topography we have out here. We're roughly 682 in the corner here, so a little bit about building pad elevation, but then it rises back up to 692. And then as you come down to this corner, we're at 704. So we're going to be sitting a lot lower than the property line here. So there's a lot of fall. You know, a 200 scale plan, that's about as good of a grading exercise as I can run through for you at this time.
But your intention is not to have one building sitting way above another building, or what, or are you talking about grading the entire site?
Yeah, so actually, I think we're only going to grade, we got a mass earthwork permit for this first building, correct? For building 1 would be the first building that we would work on. These two buildings are roughly the same elevation. This is about 680 and a half. This one's 683. This one's going to step up because we're rising uphill as we go east to 695.
So it's 10 or 15 feet?
Yeah. As far as the north property line, because of the tower easement that kind of cuts through here, we really don't have any improvements up here proposed. We do have this potential trailer storage area here, but this easement, I don't know if you can see this easement that cuts diagonally, then it parallels that property line. That easement's 50 feet wide, so you can see we're off of that. We're probably at least 60 feet away from the north property line there with our nearest improvement.
And you have no intention of taking out any trees along the north property line?
Well, not on the property line itself, but I can't tell you that we won't have to take some trees out in this green area. I'd have to look, I don't have the grading plan with me. I can't remember what it looks like, to be honest with you. And if you have a cut slope or something, you know, to get down to the pad level, I'd have to verify that.
What you heard is the comments from your northern neighbor. He was interested in the fence, he was interested in some screening perhaps, he's concerned about the water. Would you consider going along with him to build a fence on it near his property line?
I think that's a good question.
I'm sorry, I'm doing that thing again. So I asked, one of the things that he mentioned was maybe working with you on a fence line and a fence. Is that something that you would be willing to discuss with him, to do something in conjunction with him?
Doug Armbruster, Core 5 Industrial Partners. Since we are not really planning to do much along that northern property line, a fence really would not have any immediate benefit for us. We wouldn't have any issue with Mr. Whelan putting a fence up. Any fencing that we would do in the future would be concentrated closer into the building for security. We wouldn't want to have a 400 or 500 foot boundary between the edge of the paving and a fence, because we'd probably end up getting into a duplicate fence. So it wouldn't serve any purpose for our development, because we're going to look at everything more on a lot by lot basis to the extent that the user wanted to add fencing. But it's not something we do when we build a building unless
Okay.
the tenant specifies.
Am I correct in saying that right now, near his property line, but on your property, there's trees and sort of some screening currently, and I think maybe he has some concern about you taking these down? Is that what I think he said?
I believe that's what I heard, and when we finalize the grading plan, we're happy to sit down and walk through that. Rob, I don't believe we're disturbing really anything along that north property. 300 feet and really the northeast corner where we're showing that lot, maybe because it is high, it may become a borrow area for harvesting good fill material and maybe placing topsoil in there. So, you know, our intent really is not, there's a lot of waste on this property, including everything really within that easement, and we're limited in terms of what we can do with the grade under that easement with, is it Duke or, yeah.
So you're not planning on removing a bunch of trees or things that are on your property
No.
in the north?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go do that.
So John Delverne, stormwater. You can see we basically surround our buildings on each side with large stormwater basins. They're there in size to meet Warren County stormwater regulations, which is the flood control part. They'll also incorporate Ohio EPA's water quality volume. That's small storm events. But we should, the goal, if we meet, when meeting the county's regulations, we should be letting off less water in the post-developed case for these larger storm events than what gets released from this site today. So you can see how you got a big building, and then you got parking on both sides, and half's going to sheet this way and half's going to be directed this way into these basins and then released into the existing stream. What comes through here from off-site is going to continue to come through there.
Thank you.
Jeff, any follow-up questions?
Jeff Whelan, the only other question I had was, does this follow the thoroughfare plan that you guys had
Yeah, Stan, do
envisioned?
you want to talk about that a little bit? Because, yeah, that was a much bigger deal. At one point, Union Road was ground zero for all of our plans up through there. And I don't know if we got frustrated or what it is, but it seems like it's not quite as hot and heavy as it once was.
I think that 16-acre piece that you can kind of see a little rectangle that's out. This area right here is the area that we discussed. That's the area that we discussed. That's going to be your sewer treatment plant facility right there, I think.
I think actually this property.
Yes. Yeah. And so I just wondering if things are still looking that way or how they're looking. I think this is probably out of curiosity from my point, because I agreed with that plan. I thought it was really cool for the boulevard. I didn't base my farm on it or anything like that. I remember talking about it and I thought, man, this is something we should stick to, because, you got to have some kind of plan moving forward.
Since Mr. Whelan proposed this development, we have done the gateway plan, and not the gateway plan, but the crossroads plan. We've also updated the mixed-use zoning district and changed some of the other zoning standards. So it's actually, this proposed development is consistent with the most recent Turtle Creek Township plans.
Sure, but is there any update on that Union Road thoroughfare plan? Are we still sticking to that? Is that just long-term? We're
Crossroads
struggling with
plan,
the property owners, or what?
Was much more detailed than the gateway plan, and the vision has changed to encourage exactly what we are speaking about here today, this type of industrial development.
Tammy, you got any comments on that, on the Union Road? Because I'm actually kind of thinking the same thing. I mean, since Jeff brought it up, I don't know, I haven't heard anything about it at all.
Hi, Tammy Boggs, Turtle Creek Township. I have been sworn in. Yeah, I think, as Stan said, we have gone back and redeveloped the plan. What is being proposed is what's planned there now, and I think as it expands out, it'll be softer uses to the north and to the east, is kind of what the plan is as we move forward in the future. The industrial use is what we're looking for this area right now. Softer uses as you go north and east is what will be happening in the future.
But what about, so the thoroughfare plan of Union Road has been changed?
It's been modified, I think.
Because it's not going to be a bunch of apartments and
Correct.
Starbucks or whatever.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes.
Are you okay with this opening up to the Shaker Run? And
The engineer's office is kind of directing that approach as far as the HOA coming to them and asking for an additional access point. So I think, we had some concerns, as you guys did as well, as about traffic going through the subdivisions. I think Doug has talked about how he's going to mitigate that somewhat. The engineer's office is requesting 2 access points, so that is one way of them gaining that second access point, and also helping the HOA and their needs for additional access points for their subdivision.
Yeah, I mean, again, I thank my colleagues for bringing that up. It's a very good point to be discussed. But again, yeah, the whole bar, I was almost over-engineering it. The simple bar thing that prohibits trucks from going through there will 100% stop the trucks from going north up into the development. It just will. And if I'm a resident that has to go wind out through my subdivision, out onto 741, come down to the corner, and then go the whole way, or I can go a back way, and there's a nice little wide boulevard that's, made for truck traffic, and my my personal car can, whip down through there a couple of times a day to get on the 75. That's a tremendous benefit for me.
Correct. It definitely benefits the subdivision more than it benefits Doug's development.
Right. Okay, thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
So anyone else wish to speak in favor of this development? Now I'll entertain comments from anyone that opposes this development. Want to give the applicant another opportunity. Anything else you want to talk to anyone that's testified so far? Just a no? No. Thank you. For the record, want to give you every opportunity. Anything else you want to add to the record as we're considering this? Very good.
How about we ask the applicant if they would agree or have any comment on an addendum or just some additional language to condition number 10. RPC's recommended condition says the substreet to the Shaker Run development shall be installed to the property line prior to 75% of the lots being platted or development. If we could add some language there that at a minimum provides the stub street shall be improved with structural traffic control devices to attempt to prevent semi-truck traffic from accessing the Shaker Run development.
But how about making a modification, not to attempt, but to actually like the bar thing that would prevent it? Is that, would you agree with that? Can we do it that, Bruce?
Yeah, we can strike attempt to and just say prevent. It's
Or
just
say
somebody.
shall.
Somebody's
my
going-
favorite word, shall.
Yeah, somebody's probably going to breach that in some way. And
Is
then
that-
and a question I have is, I didn't get a clear understanding. Is the internal streets in this development private or public?
Oh, boy, here's the engineer's going to shoot down our idea.
Yeah, sorry, I've been called the dream killer before.
So if it's a public street, we can't do this?
Well, first of all, simple question. The main street in off of 63 is public, and then this connection to Shaker Run is public also. The rest are private.
So from 63 up to the stub, it will be public.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I just used a generic there, structural traffic control devices, and I might add the language as approved by the Warren County engineer. Let the county engineer decide what it needs to be.
I would prefer
Instead of
that.
us pontificating what might work. Somebody's gonna get hung up there. And I'm also gonna say, whatever you do put there, the county engineer may want some of that to be private, and your development or your association's gonna be responsible for getting someone out of that bind when they get hung up there, like Peter's Cartridge, where they try to drive over the concrete barriers or whatever the case may be. It's not going to be the government's responsibility to do that.
So I can see a license and maintenance agreement for those uses in the public right-of-way. We've done that before. Matter of fact, we did it in Shaker Run on their entry boulevard.
Okay,
for
you got,
landscape.
they seem to be in agreement.
So you're talking about even if 20 feet of that connector was private, that's where the structure is? Are you talking about something like that?
I'm talking about, a lot of times, like on access to a subdivision, the engineer sometimes will want like a landscape area to be private so that the developer's on the hook for maintaining that. He may want to do that, he may not. I want to just leave it broad enough to where the county engineer makes those determinations.
Right, we're just trying to memorialize, we're going to put some sort of a barrier in somewhere where trucks are not going up through there. And it seems like everybody's in agreement, that's in no one's best interest. However, so Bruce, yeah, however you journalize that, that would be great.
Okay, I'll email that to Tina.
Thank you.
Very good. So I'm going to ask the applicant a couple more questions. So we've given you every opportunity to ask questions and present whatever you wanted, correct? Yes. And we haven't denied you anything, right? Okay. Hearing that there's nothing else to be said on this matter, any other questions from my colleagues?
Nope.
Very good. I'll entertain a motion to close this administrative hearing.
So moved.
Yes.
And yes, what is the pleasure of the board? We can talk about this for the next 6 months, which is what we normally do here in Warren County. No, just kidding. We'll act on this right away.
I'll make a motion that we approve the PUD Stage 2 plans with the conditions recommended as modified by our law director, with condition 10.
Second.
And roll call.
Commissioner Young?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Grossman?
Yes.
Good luck, fellas. No, we appreciate your interest in Warren County. We know this has been a pain in the rear. We know a lot of people have been interested in this. So, you know, everything staff has told us that you guys have done good jobs in other areas, and we look forward to having you expand your corporate partnership here in Warren County.
Thank you.
Very good. There's nothing else on our agenda, but we'll, public meeting, entertain any comments from the public.
Walter Bessie, 1230 Summerwood Drive, Lebanon, Ohio, 45036. I've been sworn in.
You don't have to, that hearing's over. You don't have to swear.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to be sworn in just to talk to us.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very concerned, American, as far as where our country is headed. Some of the things that I've kind of read about and seen, a Captain Steth Kestrel has done a synopsis of across the board as far as the November 3rd voting, and Warren County was in the yellow. They're saying that there's roughly about 15,000 votes that I'm hoping that that Warren County has grown by 15,000. But I guess in the 2016 election to the 2020 election, there was a difference about 15,000 that could possibly be some sort of fraud. And I'm not saying anything. As far as Warren County, I think I love this county. I love Lebanon, love Ohio, and I love America. And I'm here to hopefully that there's a couple questions on when voter registration is updated for Warren County. Is it current as far as people being deaf people that have been died recently, taken off the register and so forth. I just want to make sure that everybody's vote, whether it's Democrat or Republican, it does not matter. But everybody's vote should be counted, and elections should be secure. And I hope that we are looking at that, especially for 2022 is coming up. We need to make sure that when people go out to vote, that it's 100% and there's no fraudulent coming into play. When I voted in 2020 in November, I voted over here at our great new building, and I did see a concern that there was a drop box there that people could drop their ballots in, but nobody was checking anything. They was just putting the ballots in there. So I think we need to really kind of make our voting more secure.
Let me explain to you how that works with that drop box, so that you're rest assured that it is a controlled box. So only the Board of Elections has access to get the ballots out. And those ballots are absentee ballots. So the way in which that works under Ohio law, there's a certain period of time where people can request an absentee ballot, and that form requires them to identify themselves with their driver's license or their last four digits of their social security number. And then they also have to sign that application. And that signature has to match with the signature that they used when they registered to vote. So they have to register to vote, which, and to register to vote, they have to give information proving that they're, meet the qualifications. That is, that they are saying that they live at a particular address and within the county, and that they are of age and competent and not been made incompetent to vote for some reason, like they're a felon or something like that. And then the Board of Elections reviews that and puts them on the registered roll. If they're, as long as they're registered and they submit that application properly in a timely fashion, then the Board of Elections, verifying that, will mail them a ballot. They get the ballot. In that ballot that they receive, they fill it out, that is, they'll vote it, and then they put it in an envelope, which they seal. And that requires them to do, again, certain identifying characteristics where they sign this, and then the Board of they can drop it in the drop box, they can deliver it to the Board of Elections, they can mail it to the Board of Elections, and if it's received within the time period that's allowed by law, that vote is counted. They have to live in that home still in order to be a count. So there's a lot of things. Now, you asked another question, which is, what does the Board of Elections do when somebody dies? They track that. And when that gets reported that somebody has died, they remove them from the registration list that they have. In addition, when somebody moves, and they re-register in another location, they'll receive notification of that, and then they remove them. So let's say somebody moves down to Hamilton County, and they register to vote there. That information is shared with the Board of Elections, then they remove them from the registration rules of Warren County, and they can't vote then because they're not registered here any longer. So that's how it's supposed to work. Now, let's say somebody moves and they don't register in another jurisdiction. Then they're still on the registration rules, and they could vote, even though it's illegal. They're not allowed to do that. But does that happen? Imagine that it does. Dead people voting, I mean, you hear reports of that happening, but dead people should be removed from the list.
Right.
You know, and I don't completely know how they, say somebody moves and then they die someplace else. I don't understand how they find out about that. And, but you know, they probably know the answer to that question, and we can inquire of them, because we don't control how the Board of Elections runs elections. We control their facilities, we do budgeting for them, for their office, and we approve machinery to vote with and purchase it for them. We do all of that at their recommendation, but the Board of Elections controls their elections, and they have a staff that's vigilant. And we share your concern with the fact that we don't want fraud.
Right. I mean, as far as our machines that we use here in Warren County, is there certain manufacturer?
What we do know on that, the gentleman in the back literally went through this about 3 weeks ago, and I think he actually met with the Board of Elections, who is a separate board than us. We do not control those. However, Commissioner Grossman was actually chairman of the Republican Party. He's an attorney. He has fought nationally on some of these types of things, so he is an expert when it comes to this election law stuff. What I will say is, being around as long as I've been in purchasing these machines, our machines literally are not connected to the internet. They literally do not go onto a network. You cannot even have access to the machines unless you're with a Republican and a Democrat at the same time. There is no one monkeying around with our machines. So they are there, they're tight. The gentleman told us about us coming up on this report. I take great pride in the fact that Warren County is safe and secure, and we vote the way we do. And I have zero doubt that it's a secure and safe and accurate election. Are there the one-off situations where someone's mother's died 3 weeks ago, they're still getting mail, and an application came to the house, and Junior came and grabbed a ballot and filled it out? I'm sure that happens, but that's the one-off. You're going to get that kind of on both sides. That is not systemic fraudulent activity. So are there incidences of fraudulent behavior out of individuals? I'm sure there is. We used to get a pack of smokes in Chicago or whatever for voting. I mean, so it absolutely, those things go on, but is it en masse? Is it, I was more concerned, instead of fraudulent voting. What I was more concerned with this last go-around was illegal activity by state legislatures that changed the rules, or state executive branch people, governors, that changed the rules of elections, even though the Constitution says that elections are to be determined by state legislatures at a time and place of their choosing, essentially. But yet you had governors come in and say, well, I just don't like this, or I'm going to change this because of this excuse or that excuse. I don't like that.
Right.
But is that systemic problems with our voting? I would say no. Was that a one-off of they screwed around with the voting rules? It went before the courts, and the courts were very much hands-off. We don't want to mess with this stuff. And then we got kind of what we got.
Yeah, the other thing is you should be aware that after questions were raised with regard to the conduct of the prior election, the head of the staff of the Board of Elections came to us the very same day. They were listening apparently to our meeting, and he mentioned that they perform an audit. They at random pick certain precincts, it's like 5%, something like that, and then they check the voting in those precincts. They match them because they kept the ballots, and they match in other words, they make sure that there isn't some unusual activity where there like fewer people registered, more ballots, that type of thing, okay? Right. So that's not happening. And they did audit it, and in fact, they've got data so that the public, and they told us that this was publicly available information because there was somebody done some statistical analysis and raised some questions about the voting patterns based upon a statistical analysis, and yet they've kept data so that you can actually go back, and the public, I think, has some ability to review this so that they can do their own audits too. But the Board of Elections does do a spot audit on it to ensure themselves, and they found no issues with regard to this, and that's done by, because the way the Board of Elections has set up, the top two in the governor's, the last election for the state with the governor, the two top parties get to have 2 members of the Board of Elections. So of course, that's always going to be Democrat and Republican. So they each have 2 members on a 4-member board. And if they deadlock in how they're voting or then it goes to the Secretary of State, which sometimes is Republican, sometimes a Democrat. Right. And he's a tiebreaker, or she's a tiebreaker. So that's kind of how it works. And everybody cares about having good elections. And everybody cares that there not be fraud. And I completely share your concern about the direction of our country. My concern is that there are people in political power that don't share the same vision of our country and ideas of freedom and our constitutional rights that I do, and that I think our founding fathers do. That concerns me. Yeah. And I don't want to elect those people to office. But I want a fair election system where we have a fair contest, and the winner is those who cast the most vote for their candidate. And we want to ensure that process functions properly. And Commissioner Young mentioned something that I deeply am concerned about, and that is that secretaries of state, or that certain litigation was filed by somebody, and then some secretaries of state reached some consent agreement or whatever, and they completely rejected the legislative process that's put into our Constitution, that the legislatures determine how voting is to take place, they determine how elections are to take place, all of that. And yet, that was overridden in certain jurisdictions that were key to the election victory of President Biden. And I share those concerns that happened.
I just wanted to.
That's not fraud, by the way.
What's that?
It's not, that's not fraud. That is, I think, unconstitutional. I think it was inappropriate, but it's not fraudulent.
Dirty pool.
Yeah. So I appreciate the time for the board today.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the meeting? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And yes.